Bitch, let's go.
He's Derek.
I also was a young hippie. I also was dating in the 1970s.
She's Romaine.
Bitch, you should have put that tree in the attic a long time ago, but you're being lazy, and now I'm going to hold you accountable.
This is Derek and Romaine.
2.0, bitches!
Derek here, along with Romaine, and if anybody has gone global with their problems, it's us.
Isn't that the truth?
Oh, just take our baggage everywhere we go.
Everywhere.
An extra $35 for my emotional baggage. What? How dare you, airline?
Yes. Seriously.
I'm waiting for them to do that. Although you've seen the meme that's floating around of the person trying to check their bag at the front desk before they get to the gate and go through security, and the gate agent says, "I'm sorry, sir, your bag is overweight. You're going to need to take some items out and put it into your carry-on bag that will be going on the same plane."
You know what? I love that meme, and I will tell you what, because it's so true. This is the thing that drives me absolutely bonkers about so much of this is like, okay, so your bag is 1 pound overweight. You have to take some things out of that bag and put it into another bag that's going to go on the exact same plane. And I get it. You don't want the baggage handlers to die picking up your 900-pound bag. Okay, fine. But come on. I always have found that so ridiculous, the way that they do that kind of crap. And I'm just like, this is silly. Although I was thinking today, Derek, speaking of baggage.
Oh, God. I'm so afraid when you start thinking.
I know, it's always trouble. So I was thinking about how next year we're doing a DNR cruise out of New Orleans on my birthday.
Yeah.
Right? And I was thinking about that trip, and I thought, I'm going to have to pack another bag for that trip.
For your birthday undies? What's going to go in that bag?
All the presents I expect people to bring me.
Jesus Christ.
It's my birthday. They better bring me presents. I want a whole bag of presents.
So I have strong feelings about wedding etiquette, right?
I know.
But on this case, with birthday etiquette, if you're doing some kind of remote birthday thing, like this technically is, mail the presents, don't bring the presents. And
they're going to bring them.
I know, but with a wedding... don't bring the presents to a wedding or a reception, because then they just have to deal with them at the end of this party or whatever. Just ship them.
You know what?
Them
I will just say
advance.
now, in advance, for my birthday cruise, you can just bring me money or gift cards.
Okay,
is that
that's fine.
tacky? But that's easy to pack home.
Yeah, I think what you should do is, like an Italian wedding, you should have a money bag. And then dance with people with a bag, and then tell them to put their money and gift cards in your
Oh my God,
dance
that's
bag.
amazing. I love that. Because you know what a whore I am for my birthday.
I know, you really are. And she will, 10 cents a dance, the price has gone up. Talk about inflation.
Yes, indeed.
Romaine wants your minimum $50 gift cards, and she will slow dance with you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
slip that money in her bag.
And not my prison purse. What?
No, a real bag. But you should totally get a little bag, and you could
tacky.
put Romaine's birthday on it, and then totally wander around the ship the whole time with it, just accepting donations.
You know what I think I'm going to do? Because February is the month before my birthday. Maybe what I'll do is I'll make myself one of those, you know how when you were a kid in second and third grade and you made a mailbox for all your Valentines? So maybe what I'll do is I'll make a little mailbox and I'll just take it to every single event with me. Here's my birthday box. Put something in it. We'll just call it my birthday box. Oh God, I'm so tacky. I am so tacky and I love it.
It is a little bit tacky.
It's a lot of bit tacky. I don't care.
Well, I want people to know that should you decide to join us on an upcoming cruise, no gifts are required.
Unless it's my birthday cruise.
That's not.
I'm going to put a little asterisk there, Derek.
That's not how any of this works.
Bring Romaine presents.
Yeah, but
money,
if this date,
gift cards.
I don't want people to feel like, this date and ship and itinerary really work for me, but I don't want to give Romaine a gift because I think she's a hag. Then people might not book.
Such a thing.
people could.
I am spending my most valuable day with them. My birthday. That is my favorite day of the year. You all know this.
Yes,
and
because it's all about you.
Yeah, and I'm saying, bitches, I want to spend my day with you. All of you.
When
Now
people
bring
go
me
on
presents.
trips, they want a trip that's about them, not you.
What? How is
Yeah,
that
I know
even-
there's a
what?
foreign concept for you.
I don't understand these words that are coming out of your mouth.
I know you really don't. Well, in just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Pauline Frommer.
Mm-hmm.
She runs the Frommer's Guide, the famous Frommer's Guide, and she has some great advice for
so awesome.
people planning travel for this year. Even if you don't want to travel with us, because Romaine will try to take the money directly out of your wallet.
I sure will.
Pauline has terrific suggestions of where you can go, including some places that you might not expect. And a little hint on one of them is recently scientists in Scotland uncovered something unusual in a bog.
Okay.
So I mean, I know you haven't ever been to the UK.
I have not.
But they have, as you have seen in various movies about Ireland and Scotland or The Crown,
Yep.
they have these lovely rolling hills, and it's a little chilly up there, and it can be wet and kind of marshy.
Like my backyard right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so they have these peat bogs,
Okay.
and they're just kind of like the British UK version of quicksand, right? They're just kind of muddy things. And things fall into them and they never come back out.
Oh, that's sad.
But recently, in one of these bogs in Scotland, a tartan was discovered.
Okay. A tartan. Like a kilt tartan?
Yes, like a fabric.
Yeah. The fabric of like one of the clans. Got it.
Yes, a plaid fabric.
Yeah.
Was found, and it is called the Glen Afric tartan.
Okay.
And they believe they have dated the fabric.
Oh, man.
And they have put the date of this tartan plaid to somewhere in the 1500s.
Oh, and it's lasted that long? It was preserved that well?
Yeah, somebody's skirt just, fell off.
Wow. Well, probably were killed in like a battle or something would be my guess.
Or it could have been a Scottish version of Diana Cage and just like, oops.
I stepped right out of it.
My plaid I stepped right out of it.
Sure.
I fell in this bog and it took my tartan with it.
Although, typically, a tartan is something that was, it was like basically like draping yourself with your family flag.
Yes.
And it was something that was very cherishable. And most men did not want to part with their tartan.
No.
And so it's very unlikely, in my opinion, that it just fell off.
Hey, flag.
Because it was something
agree.
revered and treated with a lot of respect.
So respecto, it means respect. Well, it's also possible that because this happens a lot with archaeological finds, is that in the past, because this happened with somebody who bought I watched a YouTube video of this guy who bought a old plantation house in, I want to say Virginia. And what they used to do when things would break is they would just throw it in a pit in the yard.
Right.
And so when you have one of these houses, you start digging around, you'll find a fork where one of the tines broke off, or a dish that broke, and a watch that stopped working. And you dig in there and you'll find all sorts of crazy finds.
Right.
So it's entirely possible that this tartan plaid got worn out.
Sure.
And ripped, and they couldn't really sew it back together. It's like, it's much better if we just make a new one. And we're rich. We don't need to keep knitting some old thing. And then they just tossed it into a bog along with the rest of their trash. I mean, it doesn't have to be.
Right.
And then the Vikings came and killed everyone. I know you watched a lot of the Vikings, but, it could have just been an innocent trash jump thing. Well, the good news, though, is that they have been able to figure out, not only did they carbon date the tartan, they were able to figure out what the original colors were by analyzing the remnants of the dye, because you couldn't really, a lot of the dye had faded away. Just like in ancient Greece, we see these monuments as white because the original paint is long gone.
Right.
But in closer examination, most of those buildings in Greece that we think of as these white-pillared, stately things were multicolored, brightly colored.
Okay.
You know that, right?
I did not know that, no.
Yeah. And so, the Parthenon might have been, ruby red.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's
Because they were into bold color.
Sure.
And, as you see, when you go through the Mediterranean now, you see lots of picturesque cities along the coast that will be beautiful, colorful buildings there. And that's a big part of it. Or, you'll go to Santorini where everything is white.
Right.
Like we just went white. And then there's, one mean person in town who's like, my house is going to be red.
Right.
And then your house looks like a pimple on Santorini. Great job.
Pimple.
But they analyzed the dye, and they
Okay.
have recreated the Glen Afric tartan from the 1500s.
Oh, okay.
And I have seen it, and it is yellow, red, and green, which are a lot of the colors. And because of the yellow, these are I listed the colors in the sort of order in which there's the most of it. So it has kind of an orangish yellow look to it.
Right.
Because the red against the yellow makes the eye see, blur it together and make it a little bit orange looking. But it is primarily yellow with mostly red striping and then some green thread through.
Oh, interesting.
But it's beautiful. It looks like every sorry, Scottish people, my old friend Jim Hepburn. Sorry, but it looks like every Scottish plaid you've ever seen.
Well, now yes, I'm sure it does. But, they are different colors, the Scottish plaids.
Yes, they do different colors.
Some are red, some are green,
right.
yellow.
And then we'll have a different plaid pattern to them.
Yeah.
So there are different ways that they distinguish one from another.
Yes.
But it's very cool. I think there's a museum there in Scotland where they are now presenting the original and also showing you what it would look like, what it would have looked like in the 1500s.
That's amazing.
I
That's
know.
really cool, actually.
I agree.
Wow, what a cool discovery.
Yeah.
Just to think that fabric has just been sitting in that bog for all that time, undisturbed and so well preserved. That's wild when you think about it.
I know. When people meet me, they think I must have also been sitting in a bog this whole time.
Well, you do look like a
Because I'm
bog
so well-
monster. That's true.
Huh. I wasn't where I was going with that. All right.
It's not? I thought that
No.
was exactly where you were going with that.
Well, the gays love to travel.
Yeah.
And some gays have decided that they are creating a hot new gay travel destination.
Okay. Where is their hot new travel destination? Oh, God, this makes me nervous.
Well, it's going to be in the Mediterranean.
Okay.
And they are taking advance orders, although they don't yet have a location. But some gays have decided
Okay.
that they are creating the new Fire Island
Somewhere in the Mediterranean.
in the Mediterranean. Now,
Okay.
the Fire Island is a small island off the coast of Long Island here in New York. So people who haven't been to New York City, Manhattan is an island. And it's to the south of Manhattan, there's Staten Island.
Right.
And then to the west of Manhattan, there's New Jersey. And then to the east of Manhattan, there's Long Island, which when you look on a map, people who have never been here might think that Long Island is Manhattan, but it's not. Manhattan is much smaller. Long Island is quite a big Long Island that runs along the coast of New York and Connecticut. And then north of New York City is New York State. But there's just like a tiny little narrow sliver of New York State there. And then it whooshes out like a funnel. Anyway, so Long Island, though, pretty far along Long Island, there are several islands around it, including, you may remember from The Silence of the Lambs, Anthrax Island.
Okay.
Where they tried to send Hannibal Lecter. where he could have 2 hours a day on the beach.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? Yeah, so that's an island that's off of Long Island, too. Hannibal Lecter does not live there. Spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen The Silence of the Lambs. But Fire Island is not at all like Anthrax Island, mostly. But it is a island off of Long Island that is where not just New York gays, but mostly New York gays spend their summers.
Okay.
And it is... it has a straight part to it, too. It's a pretty big island. It has a straight part.
It doesn't have a lesbian part, too?
It has a lesbian part.
Okay. Yeah.
Historically lesbian part, and then a historically gay guy part, but they're a little more blurry. The lesbian part, the property values were lower, it was cheaper, and so all sorts of gays bought into the lesbian part because, it was a bargain, and now it's pretty mixed, but yeah. So that's what Fire Island is. But people have a lot of strong opinions about Fire Island, me included.
Right.
I don't particularly like the Fire Island experience because I don't like the sun and the beach. And it's difficult to get to. Things on the island, there's not a lot on the island to have. It's expensive to go.
Right.
They have a couple of tiny little bodegas where things are outrageous. So you have to bring everything with you, food, all supplies with you, liquors. There's a couple of very tiny boutique hotels, 1 or 2 restaurants, but it is mostly just houses. Right. There are no cars. So when you bring things out of the island from a ferry, you have to carry it or put it in a wheelie cart and wheel it around.
What a pain in the ass that is.
It's kind of a pain.
Yeah.
But the gays are into it. It's expensive.
And now they want to do it over in the Mediterranean.
It's exhausting. But these other gays who want to make a new Fire Island in the Mediterranean would like to make something for the gays, but where they can fix some of the problems of Fire Island.
And does it need to be on an island, or is it just going to be a beach somewhere?
They have narrowed it down, I think. It's not going to be a whole island because there aren't any uninhabited whole islands. Right. But it will be a big block of land on some island.
Okay.
And then they will sell essentially lot shares.
Sure. That
people will be able to buy in and then build houses in a community that will be a, shake and bake gay community.
But isn't that, okay, and I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but isn't there a place called like Styges or something like that? Isn't that what that is basically?
Well, they have Ibiza. The gays go to Ibiza. Yeah. And they go to Mykonos. There are go-to places in the Mediterranean.
Right, like I think about like a P-town type of place.
Right, that are gay resort towns.
Right.
And I don't know why they don't just buy land close to an existing gay destination that they could build a shake and bake community in, especially because these places like Ibiza and Mykonos have existing infrastructure. They have ways to get there. They have flights in and out. It will be much easier for people to go on vacation there. And if there is other existing gay life there, it will be a much better experience.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, I just feel like they could take one of these places that already exists and make it better and call that their new gay destination.
Yeah.
But maybe there's not enough land and they want to actually like start it from the ground up, maybe? Is that maybe what it is?
Maybe. This just seems like not a good idea. But apparently one of the founders who's putting it together has said he made a statement about how disturbed he was by seeing people wheeling gigantic 8-packs of paper towels to their Fire Island rentals, and basically has implied that there won't be paper towels in this new Fire Island community.
Maybe there won't be new paper. You need paper towels.
Yeah. No. You could just get a kitchen rag and just rinse it out, and that's fine.
Oh, cool. Okay. I mean, I don't disagree with that, but also...
Right, that is true. It's better for the environment to use, regular... like cloth than a paper towel. But
I think you got to be realistic about how people live.
Yes. And people, paper towels are convenient. It's
What
part
about
of why.
toilet paper? You're not going to allow toilet paper either?
Who knows? Probably. It'll probably be all bidets.
It's all bidets? Jesus Christ.
And then,
Oy.
air dryers.
Okay.
Who knows? I already don't like the idea of Fire Island, and I get it, I'm not the target audience here. But whenever these kinds of things get announced, I think about what is the business model here?
Right.
How is this logistically supposed to work? And I look at this and I just think this has a lot of problems.
Yeah.
One, you need to find enough wealthy gays to buy in.
Yeah.
To make it viable. Then, two, you have to find a place that will be willing to let you shake and bake 300 houses on a beach.
Right.
I don't know where that is, where you're not going to come up against some environmental concern or archaeological concern. The Mediterranean has been ancient in this civilization place. And that's a lot of build.
Right.
And I just don't know where this uninhabited, undeveloped, massive block of land is.
I don't either.
And the other thing is that people vacation in the Mediterranean in the winter.
Right.
And Fire Island is a summer destination.
Yeah.
And it's different. Like Fire Island has a pretty short season. 4 to 5 months tops. Some people come out before Memorial Day, but not many people. And by Labor Day, people are packing it in. Yeah. There's just not a lot left by the end of September in Fire Island.
It's true.
It's a pretty short season.
And I've never even been there, but I know it's true.
Because you know what the weather is here.
Right.
And once the party boys can't run around everywhere in a thong, they're out. The nice thing with the Mediterranean is that it has longer seasons.
Yeah.
But are people going to live there year round? Because we recently did a cruise where we went to Mykonos, which has a big, in the summertime, it is very vibrant. They have gay bars and gay beaches
I wonder
and whatever
what
else.
it's like there in the summertime.
But packed. But when
we
were there,
was what, considered the fall?
Yeah, and it was a lot of those venues, they're only open seasonally.
Yeah.
And even though the weather was nice, the tourists weren't there. So these businesses don't stay open.
But yes, I know.
So I don't know how this logistically is going to work.
It seems odd to me.
The other thing with Fire Island is it feels very remote because it's hard to get to and it doesn't have a lot of infrastructure and everything else. But the reality is it's a few feet away from land. You can have electricity, internet, sewer system,
right,
all sorts of things. Yeah, on that island because it's right next to essentially land. Even though Long Island is an island, it has all the infrastructure of a continent. That one of these islands that you shake and bake into, who's going to run? Are they going to build a sewage treatment plant? How about a fresh water? Where's the fresh water coming from? 300 houses filled with gays and thongs. Those bitches are going to be thirsty.
Yeah, those bitches aren't going to be camping.
No.
They want to be glamping.
Yeah.
And it better be glamorous.
This has Fire Festival written all over it.
It sure does. You know what? I think you're right, Derek. It does sound like that. This does not seem like... What gay came up with this idea?
I don't know.
They need some handy-dandy lesbians to talk some sense into them.
Yeah. I don't know. It concerns me. And not even the paper towel thing. Although that just feels like, oh, God. For everybody who hates HOA rules, you are really going to hate the new Fire Island. Yeah. Sorry, we have to inspect your bag for paper towels.
Yeah. Oh, God. Horrible. Horrible. Wow. Well, good luck, gays. Good luck to you. It does not sound like a place I want to go. I don't want to go to there, Derek. At least not yet. I need to be proven that it's actually going to be worthwhile. Yeah.
Well, it's, I think, boondoggle. That's what they should call it because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of things that may or may not happen, and I don't know how it's going to work,
Okay.
move over, Freedom Tower in New York City.
Oh, God. Why?
America is about to have a different tallest building.
Oh, where at?
Why don't you take a wild guess?
Okay. A new tall building is not.
No, not new tall building.
Oh.
The building will be the tallest building in the United States at 1,907 feet.
Okay.
Now, the Freedom Tower, for context, where they rebuilt after 9/11, that building, to be too cute by half, is 1,776 feet tall.
Okay.
With the spire on the top.
Right.
It's got a tall spire. And that counts.
So this building is about to become the tallest building, but it's not necessarily a new building?
Oh, no. It will be a brand new building.
Okay.
It is on I think, a 3-acre, I think they're proposing it on a 3 or 5 acre block of land. It's a big block of land, and it's going to be a complex where there will be more than one tower, but only one of the towers will be 1,900 feet tall. So,
seems so
an
tall.
additional probably 10 stories taller
Than the Freedom Tower.
Than the Freedom Tower in New York City. That, by the way, they have had trouble filling.
Right. Okay, so this new big building is going to go where? Where? If I was a big tall building, where would I go?
If you were going to build the tallest building in the United States, I will tell you this. It is in an urban center.
Sure. So it's going to be in a
So
big,
it is in
big
a city.
I'm going to say they're going to build this giant tower in Texas. And I'm going to go Dallas.
I have to say, that is not the worst guess.
Because, they like things bigger in Texas.
They do love
and
things
they
big
would
in
love
Texas.
to have the tallest building, I imagine. Because it's
They
got to
would
be in
love
a
that.
place that is not prone to earthquakes, I imagine.
Oh,
right?
well,
Oh,
let's put a pin in that.
Oh, God.
Okay.
But I would say not prone to earthquakes, so I would almost put the whole West Coast off of it. Chicago has a bunch of big tall towers, but I don't think they're going to go do that again in Chicago. And I'm trying to think of a city where I'm going to stick with Dallas. I think Dallas is or maybe Atlanta. Maybe Atlanta.
Atlanta is thriving and growing.
Because I'm also trying to think of like a city that might actually have the space to put something like that in it.
Sure, yeah, you need a bit of space.
Yeah, because you can't like just jam it into the middle of Manhattan. There's no fucking space in the middle of Manhattan to put something like that.
Well, I mean, you could put it right in the middle of Central Park, but...
Well, yeah, because New Yorkers won't lose their shit over that.
Oh, of course they would.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm going to go with either Atlanta or Dallas.
Okay.
Those are my guesses.
Well, those are such terrific guesses that they are, in fact, wrong. Okay.
I could tell they were wrong. But so where are they putting this giant building?
Dallas was the closest of the two. The building is called the Boardwalk at Bricktown, and it is being proposed for Oklahoma City.
Okay. All right, but why Oklahoma City? What, I mean, I guess my question is, what industry there would fill a building like that?
Well, it is going to be a mixed-use complex.
Okay.
It will be residential. It will have a hotel. It's going to have restaurants. Basically, the lower level of it is going to essentially be a mall.
Interesting.
And I assume that it will have some kind of office space in it, too.
Yeah.
But it will basically be a city within a city complex.
Okay.
Which, they have not great winters there in Oklahoma. So there might be a lot of benefit to somebody to live in a fully enclosed building that has everything you could ever need in it. You'll never need to go anywhere or get any fresh air or see the sun. To me, the biggest concern I have with it is how can a city of that size support that much square footage of space for people and businesses and the infrastructure that goes along with it, because this is something that a lot of municipalities deal with these days, which is
Right. Where do you go
water,
with all the trash, the
right,
water?
water and electricity and trash and all those kinds of things.
Right.
And Oklahoma City may feel like, oh, we're growing, and this will really help us grow because it will be, instead of growing out, we'll grow up.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's the tallest building in the United States will get people excited.
But wait,
Chicago.
Won't it look odd in the skyline of that city?
Yeah, well, also, I don't know if you've ever been to Oklahoma, but that shit's flat.
Yeah.
Like, flat. Because, you've been in Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, there's that mountain. That's 500 miles from here.
Right.
But it's the only thing you can see.
Right.
Because it's so flat.
Right.
That's how Oklahoma is, only they don't have any mountains. It's just flat.
Right.
So you'll have a big view. You'll probably be able to see practically the Mississippi River from there.
Right.
From the top of that building because it's so fucking flat.
Right.
You'll get all the flat earthers will love it. Because
Right.
See?
Yep.
Look how flat the earth is.
Yeah.
Okay, girl.
Well, that is an interesting place for the tallest building in America.
Well, I think it's a terrible place for it.
Why?
For the infrastructure reasons, but also to your point about earthquakes.
Mm-hmm.
So Oklahoma has embraced fracking in the last few decades.
Oh, yeah, that does cause a lot of earthquakes.
And since they embraced fracking, Oklahoma has been beset by earthquakes. Little earthquakes, but earthquakes.
Right. But also, don't they get like tornadoes? Like, what happens if a tornado hits a big building like that?
Well, I think it will be rated to withstand that. Because, Miami, they build these tall residential towers on the beach, and they are rated to withstand a Category 5 hurricane.
That's true.
And, you could make a building that could withstand, the most, I don't remember what the tornado EF, I think that's what the rating is for tornadoes. I don't know what it is on that. I think it's a 4. I can't remember. But they have their own rating system for tornadoes. And I am sure that for this kind of a building, it would have to exceed the requirements for that because it's unclear what the air you would deal with at that height would be. Because, tornadoes form but don't always touch down.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So you could be in a situation where the building is tall, and when there's bad weather, there may not be tornadoes on the ground, but there could be tornado-like conditions 2,000 feet in the air.
Sure.
That's not hard to imagine.
Yeah.
And I think that would be terrifying. And they would have to build it, because they do these in buildings in L.A. to withstand earthquakes where they sway. And this is something that people have discovered in these ultra-tall residential buildings here in New York City, is that it sways an inch per floor, something like that, an inch for every 10 feet or every 12 feet or something.
Right.
So when you get up to, 1,900 feet, that's a lot of sway in either direction.
Sure as shit is. Remember when we used to work in that big, tall high-rise in the city, and when we get really big windstorms, you could hear the building moving?
Yeah.
That used to freak the shit out of me. And it was barely moving.
They had this problem with the super tall, pencil-thin residential towers that they built around Central Park. The people who live in them complain all the time about the creepy wind noise.
Right.
Because the whole building rattles and groans and the wind blows. It sounds like you're in a haunted house.
Mm-hmm. Sure does. It's creepy as fuck, too.
No, I think...
a little scary because you think, is this building going to hold together?
Yeah. I love the concept of a tall building. And, New York City has a lot of tall buildings. It's beautiful, whatever. But there is a point at which it's not a fun experience to be in.
Yeah. Agreed.
And I just think, this is a cute idea, but are people going to hate the experience of being inside of it? Never mind, and this is part of the issue with the Freedom Tower in New York, is that a lot of people don't want to be in the building because they are concerned about it as a visible target.
Right.
And even the Empire State Building has occupancy issues. Part of it is it's an old building, so you're dealing with a lot of the old infrastructure there. It's not like a cool building to be in, and there's always tourists around and everything.
Right.
So it's not an ideal place to have an office, but some people like to have their office in the Empire State Building because it's very cool, but it's not, practically speaking, a great place to have an office.
Right.
And this will be the problem here is you can live there or work there, but it's always going to be a tourist destination and kind of a mess. You think about when they try to build other entertainment things around big sports stadiums, because you think, well, it has all the infrastructure, and when there isn't a game on, this will be great for people to go to the movies or have dinner or whatever. But the problem is people don't know when the games are happening, and so they think, well, I don't want to go to dinner there because what if we try to go to Applebee's and we get stuck in 3-hour traffic because everybody's leaving a game?
Right. That makes sense.
And then nobody wants to go.
Right. Yep, you're right.
And I worry about those things with it too. I have a lot of questions. Again, it's a fun idea, but how's this going to work?
It's not. I think that's the answer. It's not going to work.
Well, whatever.
But I mean, I guess we'll wait and see. Maybe it will. Maybe you and I are just pessimistic.
Maybe. But it just goes to show you there are all sorts of crazy things going on all around the world.
Oh, yes.
And joining us next, Pauline Frommer is going to talk to us all about what's hot this year to see. That's coming up here on Derek and Romaine.
More Derek and Romaine next.
Derek here, along with Romaine, and joining us now, it's Pauline Frommer. She is the editorial director of Frommer's Guides and publisher of Frommers.com. That's Frommers. And you can also find Frommers in social media on Twitter and Instagram at Frommers. Pauline, it is a delight to have you with us today.
Well, I loved that introduction. Thank you so much for spelling the name. I really appreciate it.
Well, as you know, when people are only hearing it, you have to sort of like, when it's a website and everything, you have to spell it out. So Frommer's has been a gold standard in travel guides and information for decades. So I'm really thrilled to have you with us. And even for us more personally, you guys were the first really to highlight gay travel as part of your mainstream travel coverage.
Absolutely, yeah. The Frommer guidebooks were founded in 1957 by my dad.
Wow.
When he was drafted into the Army during the Korean War. And luckily, because he was the son of immigrants, he got sent to Europe because he spoke Russian and German. And so he was a spy there. But
oh, my.
Yeah, but he started traveling around, self-published his own book. It became the best-selling guidebook of all time. And then I think it was probably in the early 80s, and I'm ashamed it was that late, but we became the first mainstream travel guide to put in a section for LGBTQ plus travelers, although, at the time we said gay travelers. But,
right.
That was important to us. We think that travel is a mind-expanding, life-enriching activity that we want to be safe and wonderful for everybody.
Now, Pauline, obviously there's the family history of this, but was this what you always wanted to do, or is this just something that because you were born into it, you were born into it?
I wanted to be an actor, and I actually, in my early 20s, I toured the country in the national tour of Les Miserables.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I did musical theater, but in between jobs, my father would always give me research and writing work, and ultimately I found it as creative and as appealing as the acting. It's hard to be an actor, especially as a woman. You're constantly trying to make yourself into a product.
Sure.
And that just got icky after a while.
Well, and the reality, because we have faced it too with our show, because we now travel quite a bit. Traveling is fun, and seeing new places, having new experiences, it really is invigorating. And so I can see that as time goes on, you're like, you know what? I actually really enjoy laying on a beach or seeing beautiful sights, a sunset on a mountain or on the sea. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, I think it's a lot of fun, and when I'm being idealistic about it, I think it helps further the cause of world peace.
Agreed.
I mean, most of the time what we hear on the news is so negative because, if it bleeds, it leads. That's what catches people's attention. But then you travel to places that you might have heard negative things about, and you realize, no, these are just people. They want to welcome strangers. They're excited to meet you, and they've created beautiful civilizations, and often we can learn from them. Other places have solved their social issues differently than we have. Sometimes their solutions are better than ours, and so you become, I think, a better democratic citizen by traveling. But that's my way to say I feel badly about also the greenhouse gases that are released.
Well,
so that's the other side of it.
yes, that is a factor, and I mean, I definitely want to talk about sort of how the travel industry is approaching that. But this is something for us. Like after Hurricane Katrina, we started doing trips to New Orleans because I know that frequently what can happen is that a place that depends on tourism, when they have a natural disaster, like they recently had in Maui, tourists, their first instinct is to stay away. Like, they're rebuilding, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, it's sometimes hard for these communities that have been hit by this to say, yes, we are rebuilding, but we also
really need
tourists to come. And it's hard to tell both of those stories at the same time. And I'm sure, there are all sorts of travel operators, hotels in Maui that, are hoping people will come to Hawaii, even though they know there was a recent terrible tragic fire there, because Maui depends on so much tourism.
It really does. I was reading that I think 80 cents out of every dollar earned on Maui is earned through tourism.
Wow.
So they need us there. In fact, there are some studies that indicate that 1 out of every 10 human beings on the planet works in the travel industry. If you look at the people who work on trains, planes, who work in restaurants that tourists go to, who work at museums and other attractions, it's a massive industry, as we discovered during the pandemic. It put a lot of people out of work.
Yeah. It really did. So I think it's a good idea to sort of look at places that are open for business, but may have recently had an issue like Maui has had, and say, what, it's worth exploring because the people who are there who were not directly and immediately impacted by the fire, they are still in business. They would like people to come. And for us, going to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina or going to Dollywood after the fire in Sevier County, for us, it really has been about, we want to support the people who are there in kind of the best way that you can, which is actually going and supporting them physically in person and their businesses.
We did a list of the best places to go in 2024, which we do every year. We have Frommer's writers embedded all over the world now. We use local journalists to write our books so that they get a really deep and rich content for the books. And we ask them every year, what are the places that are going to be the best places to go in the coming year? And one of them that came up was Maui, because, yes, they need people back. Another one, also in the Pacific, is the Cook Islands, because for the first time in 30 years, there's now direct flights from the U.S. to the Cook Islands. And so you can get there affordably and much easier. And the Cook Islands look exactly like Hawaii, but 100 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Because there's not the development there, so no skyscrapers, no highways. Instead, it's just this pristine Pacific paradise where prices are much lower than they are in Hawaii. So if you've ever wanted that kind of experience, this is the year to go.
Wow.
That's
awesome. Well, since we are talking about hot destinations for 2024, what else is Frommer's recommending?
Oh my goodness, we've got a bunch of them, and hot destinations sadly makes me think climate change. I was in
Sure.
France this summer and it was 106 degrees where we
Ooh.
were, which really cut down on what we could see and do. And so on our best places to go list, we're saying if you want to go to Europe in the summer, go to the Scottish Isles. It never goes above 70 degrees Fahrenheit there. And wow, what an interesting place to go. They have these historic distilleries. They've got ancient Viking settlements. You go to the Shetland Islands, and there are wild Shetland ponies running around. I mean, it's just an underloved destination that we think deserves more attention, especially right now, because you're never going to have a heat wave there, knock wood.
Yes. Yeah, hopefully. So since we, in talking about climate change, I do know that a lot of people who travel do worry about sort of the impact, the environmental impact of travel, because it's the emissions from cruise ships and planes, but it's also the development that goes on in previously sort of untouched areas that also can negatively impact the environment in those regions. So
Well,
what can
yes
people
and
do
no.
about
I
that?
mean, you look at certain places where forests are being logged. And if you can get tourism into, say, parts of the Amazon and Brazil and give people a living hosting tourists, that might stop them from cutting down those precious trees
That's
for
true.
farming. So there's many different ways to look at it. Frankly, a couple of years ago, I went to the Rolls-Royce factory in England, and they don't make cars anymore. They only make airplane engines. And they have engines that can run on what's called SAF, which is sustainable aviation fuel. But there's no supply chain for these new kinds of fuels that are coming up. So in a certain way, it's a governmental issue. If you really care about travel, get people in office who are going to be giving help to those who want transportation in this country to go greener. We have to push, and frankly, Biden's infrastructure bill was incredible, and nobody's talking about it, but it's giving a lot of money towards train travel, which is a very green way to travel, and so soon we may have high-speed rail in this country thanks to that bill. We're going to have greener ways to get into and out of airports. There's a lot in that bill that's going to hit, in a couple of years that is going to make the transportation infrastructure of this country a lot more green, but we need more of that. And then there's other things you can do. You can travel slower, go to one destination rather than trying to hop between 2 and 3. So you keep your carbon footprint down, and go to the local businesses rather than the multinational chains. I mean, there's a lot of ways we can travel more greenly.
And it does feel like the industry, I know that there's probably a fair mix of greenwashing that goes in there, but
Sure.
I do see that the cruise lines, the hotels, the airlines are all really emphasizing how they are trying to be better stewards of the environment. So I think they know that consumers are concerned about this and they want to address it. I think we all agree it would be better if it was more than just greenwashing, but there are definitely some steps, certainly in better efficiency
Yes.
terms of fuel efficiency on planes or on ships, and the way that they are utilizing the resources on board ships has changed a lot over the last few years. So they are making some changes. So some change is better than no change, but it is still a big issue to solve.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Here's what I would like to know. So at the very beginning, you talked about how travel is transformative and it enhances our lives and it does all of this stuff. And I remember growing up, I grew up in Wyoming, a middle of the country landlocked state. I never got to travel anywhere because my parents didn't have a ton of money. But so as a young person, travel didn't really mean anything to me. As an adult, especially as an adult in my 40s, I really love to travel, and I find it is life enhancing. But I have a 16-year-old daughter, and she's been traveling on cruise ships and things like that since she was like 1. But I'm curious, from your point of view, how young should we start having young people travel and seeing the world and experiencing all these different cultures?
Well, that's funny because, my father had to start traveling with me when I was 4 months old because he wrote Europe on $5 a day every year. And based on his experiences, he would say, don't travel with children because apparently I was a holy terror. But I traveled with my daughters from the time they were very, very young. And I think, of course, I'm partial, but I think it made them better people.
I agree.
They understand the world in a deeper way. And my older daughter, when she was 18, she took a gap year and did something called Workaway. That's a website where employers all over the world post short-term jobs, but they're short-term jobs of a very specific sort. No money changes hands, so you don't have to get a work visa. Instead, you work 3 or 4 hours a day in return for room and board.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so she took off for Japan and worked in different places. She worked at a ski resort shoveling snow, which is pretty funny because she's a tiny girl, but she did. She worked at a ryokan, which is a Japanese traditional inn, where she sent me a picture of herself grinning from ear to ear, cleaning a toilet, something she had never done at home. But she had all of these incredible adventures, and she was self-supporting. We paid for her ticket to Japan, and the rest she was able to do. So that there are ways to do it inexpensively for young people. And to be honest, she told me she met people of all ages doing that. She met 40-year-olds. She met 20-year-olds. I mean, she was 18. But she had the adventure of a lifetime.
That's incredible. Yeah, I just feel like, especially for American young people, I think it's so important to see how people live in the rest of the world, because I feel like so many Americans are so entitled. And I think seeing how other people live is really a valuable lesson.
Entitled and scared.
Yeah.
And, when people say to me, is it safe to go to destination X, Y, or Z? I remind them that destination X, Y, or Z may have travel warnings against traveling to the U.S.
True.
Because people are scared of our gun violence. So most Western countries now say, be careful in the U.S. So,
it's true.
It's all your perspective.
Yes. But for gay travelers, this is something that has been a particular issue because there are countries where it is dangerous for gay people because the laws
there's states in the United States that are dangerous for gay people now.
Yeah.
But this has always been a factor for LGBTQ travel, although we do love a hidden, as far away as possible destination. I mean, here in the U.S., Provincetown, like very, very at the tip of the Cape, or Key West, way at the end of the Keys. If it is almost impossible to get to, I mean, I feel like all of the bells are ringing for the gay community about the Cook Islands. Like, oops, sounds far. Sounds like it's right for us.
Yeah, I mean, there's rich gay culture in many parts of the world. Thailand, if you want something very far-flung, their ladyboy culture, I think, is fascinating, and real artists putting on shows in Thailand. I mean, I was just in France, as I said, and there's an incredible gay community in Paris, in Nice, in Toulouse. I mean, you just have to know and you have to look for it. But you know what? Frankly, you probably find it in every country, although some countries it has to be under the radar because there are horrific laws against gay people. But as we both know, or we all know, I mean, gay people are everywhere.
That's right.
That we are. That we are. And we are going to be at the Travel and Adventure Show. Derek and I are going to be at the Washington, D.C. show.
Wonderful.
And you're going to be there as well.
Yes, I'm about to start my, it feels like I'm in a traveling circus, because it's me and Samantha Brown, who you may know from the Travel Channel. She's on PBS now, and Rick Steves and Peter Greenberg, and actually Andrew McCarthy. Remember him from Pretty in Pink?
Oh, yeah.
He's now a fabulous travel writer, and so he appears at these shows. And Phil Rosenthal from Gotta Feed Phil, he'll be at them. So I'm appearing in Washington, D.C., and Phoenix. I'm going to be giving travel speeches all over the country. And one of my favorite things about these shows is they always get a local bookstore to set up a bookstore and sell travel books.
Amazing.
And I sit there all day long and answer people's travel questions just because I want to support the bookstore and I want to sell books.
Well, that is awesome. And I would like to remind our listeners, you can go to travelshows.com for all the information about the variety of shows that they are doing. Derek and Romaine will be the February show in Washington, D.C., and you can use the code DNRVIP to get tickets to the show with our special code, which is nice.
Right. Pauline, when, especially, sort of post-pandemic, I would imagine that some of the travel questions that you get from people have changed. So what has been the biggest change in the last couple of years in terms of what people are looking for in travel or what they ask about?
Well, people learned that life can change on a dime. And so probably the most frequent question I get now is about travel insurance.
Oh.
What it covers, how to find the right policy. Pre-pandemic, travel insurance didn't cover pandemics. It does now, so that's out of the way. And I always say that there's not one company that's best for every type of trip. So I always recommend there are these marketplace websites. They have names like tripinsurance.com, travelinsurance.com. Actually, insuremytrip.com and tripinsurance.com are two of the good ones. Another one is called Squaremouth. And you go to them, you put in the details of your trip, you put in your age, and they shoot back a list of like 50 different policies. And inevitably, the most expensive one covers the least amount of things. I don't know why that is. It's usually one of the ones in the middle, and it will tell you what's covered and what isn't in a really clear way, and you can find a great policy through that. And if you're going somewhere, where the medical insurance and medical care may not be good, it's a smart thing to get travel insurance, especially for that type of trip, because if you have to be medevaced out of a place, that can cost you $40,000 or $50,000. If you're going to parts of Africa, if you're going to parts of the Caribbean, frankly, it's good to get medical evacuation insurance in particular.
And this is, with our group trips, because we do very large groups, between like 150 and 200 people.
Wow.
And so, but it shouldn't be a surprise to you in knowing this, that on almost every trip of that size, at least one person will need to utilize travel insurance for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
They
Sure.
may, you fall off the side of a pyramid on an excursion, or you miss your flight, or your bags get lost. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes it's very minor. Your bags don't show up and you leave on a cruise ship, and then you have to, just buy things in the gift shop to wear. Sometimes it's like a little thing like that, but sometimes it is more serious. But at least one out of every, 150 to 200 travelers that we have would have benefited from travel insurance, which is, a not insignificant experience for people.
Yeah. No, it's just, here's a really dark fact. Every cruise line out there on the ships is a morgue. because people are doing very different activities when they travel than they do in their daily lives, and every once in a while that kills someone. So it's important to get travel insurance. Now, you don't need it if you're doing, say, a road trip and you're staying in a hotel. You can always cancel that hotel. You don't need it for every trip. But if you're doing a big ticket item like a cruise or a tour where you're going to lose a lot of money, or renting a house, often you can lose a hefty deposit. It's smart. It's smart to get insurance.
I agree. And then, one last thing. As people are traveling the world, one of the things that I have noticed is that frequently world events will alter where people decide to travel. And when war was raging in Europe in the mid-1930s into the late 30s, South America suddenly became a very hot tourist destination for American tourists. In the 1950s, after the World War II, Americans flocked to our national parks as a way to sort of see something other than the world that they had been seeing. And even now, as you had mentioned, with climate change, a place like Scotland becomes a very attractive summer destination. But I also know that Spain and Portugal have become very hot recently as well.
I find it very moving to go to Portugal because Portugal, I don't know if J.K. Rowling named her bad guy Salazar Slytherin after Salazar, who was the terrible dictator of Portugal for, I think, 45 years in the 20th century. And so Portugal, until the 80s, was one of the most poorest, most backward countries in Europe. In fact, they had an infant mortality rate that was higher than many parts of sub-Saharan Africa under Salazar's reign. And because of that, there aren't skyscrapers when you go there. And yet, it's one of the most progressive, economically robust, welcoming countries in Europe. And knowing the history and seeing how well they're doing, I found it very moving to travel to Portugal because I did a lot of reading beforehand about recent history, and to see how well they're doing was really amazing. And the food, oh my goodness, both there and in Spain. Oh, I love it. Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, the local food is a very important factor in travel and how delicious it is. And frequently these places, like a tiny little restaurant or cafe, can have some of the most incredible food you've ever had.
Oh, yeah. There's this thing in Portugal called pastel de nata. It's a little tiny pastry filled with custard, and it is the most delicious dessert on earth. When I'm in Portugal, I have like 4 of those a day. It's very dangerous, but it's so good.
Well, Pauline, it has been wonderful chatting with you. I look forward to coming over and saying hello to you in person.
Me too.
At the
Wonderful.
Travel and Adventure shows. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And I'll come by and see you guys.
Absolutely. We hope everyone comes to see Pauline Frommer and others, including us, at the Travel and Adventure shows going on all across the U.S. We, Derek and Romaine, will be at the New York City and D.C. shows, but Pauline will be at many of them, and you can go to travelshows.com for tickets and information. And, of course, check out Frommer's Guides at frommers.com. That's FROMMERS.com. As you can tell, Pauline knows her stuff.
Yes, she does.
And so if you are up for new places and new adventures, Frommer's can help you pick just the right destination for you. Well, there you have it. The end of another perfect episode of Derek and Romaine. And if you want more great fun, go to dnrstudios.com and subscribe to get our show every day. And don't forget, for DNR Plus subscribers, you can use the DNR Cast app for iPhone, available now in the App Store.